Hello and welcome to Diversity and Leadership Connect with Community. I've been looking forward to this session all week long with our Black Business Student Association, partially because they're just awesome humans and partially because I just really enjoy sharing space with them. So as folks continue to join, we're gonna go ahead and start introducing some of our students here. So what we're gonna do is if you can please introduce your name, what you were doing pre-GSB and what you hope to do next. So if we can kick off with Ori.
Hi, everybody. My name is Ori. Pre-GSB, right before the GSB, I was actually working at Eli Lilly and Company in pharma and started strategy. And post-GSB, I hope to get back to my roots in media and television. So we'll see how that goes.
Nice. Is there a particular area of television that you're interested in or media?
Yes, streaming services. So I worked at Amazon Studios this summer in production and hope to return there or go somewhere like Netflix or Hulu coming out of the GSB.
Nice. And then Micah.
Yep, my name is Micah Greenberg. Before coming to the GSB, I was in DC working in international development, mostly focused on public service delivery in non-regime held areas of Syria. And post-GSB, I'm transitioning into real estate and local economic development.
Oh, interesting. Can you, sorry to cold call you already, but like, what inspired you for the pivot?
In terms of real estate?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think have just kind of done a lot of soul searching in what I want to be doing and where I want to be and what I want the content of my work to look like. And it feels like real estate is the building block of what makes a city work or not work for its residents. So starting at the foundation there.
Nice. All right. So, and then Aja.
Yeah, hi everyone. I worked in commercial real estate finance, actually. So the field Mike is going into, I actually worked in that field before I came to the GSB. Spent 5 years doing that. And I came here to pivot out of finance and actually go into entrepreneurship. I just launched my startup back in July. It's called Beautyocracy. It's a beauty retail startup. So really excited to be diving headfirst into entrepreneurship, fundraising, VCs, etc. And my goal is to work on this startup full-time after graduation.
Hi, I'm Wes. Prior to the GSB, I worked in the investment management space and will be pivoting to consulting after graduation. In the long term, really interested in promoting greater financial inclusion, primarily for underrepresented communities here in the US, and have been pursuing fintech in parallel with consulting.
Nice. Cool. So could Ori or Wes, can you please tell us a little bit more about VBSA?
Yeah, I'm happy, since the mic's on me, I'm happy to kick off, and Ori, Aja, Micah, feel free to add on. I think first and foremost, VBSA is a family, and I think that family has been more important this year than really ever before. And really it aligns with our mission. Like our primary aim is to be a support system for the Black GSB community. But you know, we like to do a little bit more than that. And I think we've expanded kind of our mandate as an organization quite a bit over the past year. So we, in addition to hosting social events and community building events within our membership group, we also host a number of events that kind of open up our community to the broader GSB community and broader business community. Kind of the two key events that we hold are, one, we host a series of events during Black History Month that really showcase Black excellence in the business community to the broader GSB. And then I won't steal her thunder, but kind of our marquee annual event is our BBSA conference and gala, which Aja is leading the effort for this next year, where we really bring in a number of alums, a number of senior leaders across all facets of business to share their experience with folks here at the GSB, but also the surrounding Bay Area community, and that's been really a highlight. And then the last thing is we try to build connections with the broader Black community at Stanford. So we engage with faculty, with the administration, with our comparable groups and other graduate programs, and a lot of us mentor some of the Black undergrads as well. So it's fairly open-ended, and it's just a great opportunity for us to support each other and share our experience with the broader community.
Nice. So actually, since we just mentioned it, Aja, could you tell us a little bit more about the conference and gala?
Yeah, of course. So the Conference and Gala is an annual event that the BBSA holds. It's typically a 2-day event, although this year with COVID, it's posed some unique opportunities for us to sort of change the way we host the event this year. But typically it's over 2 days, Friday and Saturday. And it's really an amazing opportunity for us to tap on to the resources here at Stanford and bring people together amongst not just our community, but other Stanford communities, the law school, it's the med school, across the board, but then also to be able to connect with alumni. It's one of the best opportunities for us to connect with the Black alumni at the school and the Black professionals in the Bay Area. So it's this really cool uniting event that allows us to bring some of these top individuals onto our campus and have panels, discussions, keynote speakers. We've had some pretty impressive people in the past, and it's been a really great opportunity to network. And the gala has always been fun. It's probably our favorite event of the year. And it's really a way for us to connect with alumni in a more intimate setting. It's limited to a couple of hundred people. We actually acknowledge and present an award to a distinguished alumni every year. And it's just a really fantastic time to celebrate, I think, past GSBers and alumni and current students and the work that we've done and the work that we intend to do in the future.
Nice. So that's one of the large events. I know, Wes, you alluded to some like other events throughout the year. So maybe if anybody on this group could talk a little bit about maybe an event that was really meaningful for you over the past, year or so.
I can kick off. We just came off of our fall retreat for BBSA, which was meaningful for me this year and last year. It's our first opportunity to welcome the Black students from PhDs, MBA 1s, MBA 2s all together, and getting to just meet each other and learn about what we want the BBSA community to be for us. And I think that's a really great way to kick off the year, so that we all come in with that intention of we wanted to be a family, we wanted to be supportive. This year we say we want us all to win, like professionally, relationship wise, like all of these things, and how we can support each other to get us to that end goal. So that was really good. And Aja helped plan like a wellness session that like Micah and Aja are like big wellness people. And I think that was really important this year, and was just a wonderful way to kick off this community for this school year.
I would also say this is something that we haven't mentioned yet, but the other thing that Ori, Wes, and Aja's BBSA leadership have done this year is really take up a mantle and a role to be advocates for the Black community and Black students at Stanford at large and within the business school. And there was an event where kind of the three of them put together a really amazing presentation based on feedback from students, alumni, and the like to give to the administration of like, these are the needs of Black students at Stanford that aren't being met currently. And here's literally a like BCG level plan, could have been $20,000. It was free because of these guys' analysis of how you achieve these, like here are recommendations. And I think that was probably one of my most impactful experiences with this group outside of just the really great relationships that I've gotten from it.
Yeah, and I have to give all of you so much credit and gratitude and thanks for the work you have done kind of for the institution as a whole, as well as in partnership with the MBA admissions office. Thank you for always being there to help us continue to improve what we do and how we do it. And so I don't want that to be kind of a missed subtext at all. Thank you so much. And I just want to make sure that everybody on this call knows how much I appreciate each and every one of you. And so there actually is a question in the Q&A box. So I'm going to have this be an organic event, if at all possible. And I think with the topic you started, Micah, I think we can go ahead and jump into this question a little bit. This is from Robert, who would love to hear about how the GSB has been leveraging the group and the organization about ongoing dialogue and how that's evolved over time, especially given kind of the situation from this year. So any insights or maybe either things from the list of recommendations you found especially profound or meaningful?
Yeah, I can kick off there, and others feel free to chime in. I think Micah alluded to this. We've been spending a lot of time thinking through ways we can make the GSB, an even better environment for members of our Black community and really for everyone to feel included and supported. And as you can imagine, earlier this year, there was an increased appetite for resources for understanding around DEI topics. And that was a big component of what we were advocating for the institution to kind of put its weight behind. One thing that we've been, in addition to us just having some of these conversations and supporting each other within the community, one thing that's been really inspiring has been the level of engagement with allies within the broader community. So some of our classmates, created a group called Allies for Black Lives within the GSB that's kind of taken much of the burden off of our community in terms of sharing information around educating on these topics and has rallied many groups outside of even the identity groups at Stanford to support what we're advocating for within the GSB. And I think that in addition to much of the work that the Student Association, in particular the Diversity Committee, has been doing to create foundational programming early in the MBA experience to inform and create spaces for people to have these discussions. All of that's come together, and there's certainly tremendous room for improvement, but it's been inspiring to see our student community really activate and really fill in some of the gaps that we're working to close.
Yeah, I think Wes said it very well. I would add on to that we've equally been able to connect with the alumni and do some impressive work with our alumni in conjunction with the administration this year, and has really opened up an opportunity for us to have the administration's ear in a way that I don't think we necessarily had before. And so we've really taken that opportunity to have some really important conversations around what we want to see at the GSB and what we want to see the GSB do broadly. And I think equally so, we've been able to work more closely than in previous years with our Black alumni and what the work that they've been doing. That's sort of been out of our peer view in the past, but really we've been able to bring these two things together. I actually lead the initiative with the alumni, and we're working on programming within the school, and they're equally in talks with the administration. So there's a lot that's happening this year that the BBSA is a part of, and I think that we've really, and I admire Wes and Ori's leadership as BBSA presidents to take this opportunity to actually lead these conversations forward and see that we see progress out of this year in particular.
There is some interest, there's actually a lot of interest in what are like some general categories or realms that were presented in the report to administration. Where are areas that the GSB could improve?
Yeah, I can start and anyone jump in to fill in the gaps. But I think when we were putting together the presentation, we thought about the different populations at the GSB and how we could improve representation and then sense of belonging across all those populations. So faculty, staff, students, and then the GSB's impact beyond just the campus. And so, of course, that looks like increasing numbers, more Black faculty, more Black students, more Black staff. But once they get there and get here, how do they feel a part of this community and supported by this community? And that includes training for people that are not, used to DEI conversations. That means supporting students via financial aid, more so that, because we know that this is a big gap for why Black students don't end up attending business school because of that massive financial lift. And that means that when they're in the classroom, when we're in the classroom, who are we learning from? What kind of cases are we learning about? Do they feature protagonists from different backgrounds? So I think those are like broad strokes, but a lot of what we discussed and wanting students, alumni, faculty, staff, administration to all have a hand in shaping what that will look like. And we know that this work is not just one and done, that it's ongoing. And so a critical piece of our recommendation was that there needs to be some accountability piece that lives on beyond our graduation. And so the administration has created a DEI council that has faculty, staff, alumni, students that will live on to hold the administration accountable for years to come. So really excited about that as well.
And another thing that came directly out of these efforts was that financial aid is now going to be is piloting this year a supplemental program where we have need-based financial aid. However, that doesn't always examine some of the structural wealth gaps or resource gaps that might happen because of systemic and structural racism and that inheritance. And so this kind of supplemental funding is going to go to students generally who might, because of like circumstances or other factors, need additional supplemental support. It's not specifically racially based, but I think it is something that's so needed for the GSB, and I think is representative of the ways that kind of like advocacy for Black and Brown people and from Black and Brown communities really moves the whole school and the whole community forward.
Yeah, and that fund is the Bold Fellows Fund, and I actually do want to credit especially Ori and Aja for helping advise and contribute to the development of it. And as we launch it, we're so thankful and grateful and know that it's going to keep growing thanks to your help. So just want to make sure all the folks out there know, again, how much I appreciate you. So as you're thinking about like your time at the GSB beyond advocacy, as we're thinking about our own kind of personal growth and development, what were some of the things that drew you to the GSB?
So I was in a precarious place when I was trying to figure out where I wanted to go. I had 3 schools that I was thinking through, and it was very close for me. What really drew me to the GSB was in particular, first and foremost, the community. It was about connecting with the class size that I felt like I could actually manage and actually be able to connect with the majority of my classmates. I was really focused on quality over quantity. So I really wanted to develop these deeper relationships. And there was this focus of the GSB about collaboration, both in the classroom and outside of the classroom, that was really important to me. Having, as an entrepreneur, being at Stanford for me was a major plus. It was about tapping into an existing network of entrepreneurs and entrepreneurship, not just within the GSB, but within the area, the Bay Area, Palo Alto, Sand Hill. So it was really about being in the center of an ecosystem for entrepreneurship and fundraising that was really valuable for me.
Can you talk a little bit more about that? Are there specific moments or like aha situations that have helped you along your entrepreneurial journey?
Yeah, I would say the first year, I joined the Venture Studio, which is a community space that's on the GSB's campus, but it's really open up, I think, to the entire university. But it was a really wonderful community that I could sort of bounce ideas off of and sort of get some advice. I found the Center for Entrepreneurial Studies to be kind of helpful in figuring out what kind of experimental and experiential classes I wanted to take during my time at the GSB. I actually landed in Startup Garage this year. And that's been incredibly helpful for me. Startup Garage has been a really amazing opportunity for me to connect with two classmates who I hadn't worked with in a sort of official capacity before, but really got closer with. And we did some really amazing work in Startup Garage over the last quarter. And then I would say what I found to be most valuable was the faculty and the lecturers. Like some of these classes are really tactical and they're very practical. And we had VCs as lecturers. We had people who were actually actively investing and actively talking to entrepreneurs in their day-to-day who were lecturing us in the classroom, and being able to talk to these individuals about real-time problems and actually ask them about things that they were solving real time or real circumstances or entrepreneurs they could connect me with was really big. So it was about getting access to that network and like connecting with those individuals. And that for me was really impactful, particularly this year.
Yeah, nice. Before we go to what drew other folks, you tapped into a question that has been a recurring theme over the course of the week. So that accessibility piece. So just for the group, continuing along that thread of like faculty or experts, like how would you describe like your experience with like the educational ecosystem here?
Do you want to pass it on to Micah?
Yeah, I would say I came in without a lot of background in kind of traditional business. I'm a non-traditional MBA student. So just about everything was new. And I can't say that I'm a connoisseur of like the names in the business world, but we have the names of the business world, even if I haven't heard of them before. So it has been really a crash course in having really smart and really renowned and experienced people at your fingertips and available if you so know about them and choose to engage. And I think I've also, in terms of just like the faculty accessibility of experience, has been pretty wonderful, especially as a student without the background. Have met with several professors who are like brilliant and lauded in their field, and have them explain a balance sheet, you know, and walk through how to do basic accounting calculations, and get a lot of empathy and excitement there, as well as the ability to talk about more interesting and sophisticated topics. So I've definitely found just faculty who want to engage and want to know students by and large, which has been really wonderful.
Just to build on that, I feel like Stanford is like opportunity overload, and I went here undergrad, and so I've taken a lot of classes across the street as well, and it's like all of Stanford is kind of at your disposal. The faculty across the street are really excited to talk to you. At the D school or other programs are open to having business school students, the law school, the med school. So it feels like there's a lot of opportunity to take advantage of while I've been here.
Have folks taking classes outside of the GSB? Yeah, can you give a couple of examples maybe?
I took a really amazing class called Need Finding in the Wild, and then an intensive interviewing course. And essentially it's by these two practitioners who are incredibly skilled and smart, who essentially for companies do kind of exercises to elevate products. And so like the person who had done all of the research to get like Pampers or Huggies to have pull-ups, like they had noticed that like, you know, you have a child in diapers, but it doesn't really fit their developmental stage. So there needs to be a step between diapers and like underwear, and it's pull-ups, but like who knew, you know? So that was a really wonderful course that I took in the design school.
I took Chinese all last year, an advanced conversational Chinese class, and that was the highlight of my week. And next quarter, I'm so excited to take a TV script writing class and Python, because you know Stanford like invented computers or whatever, so good to know how to use them and code and do fun stuff like that.
Sorry, I kind of got off track just because everybody was giving such a great like areas and on ramps, but So Aja mentioned some of what drew her to campus. So coming back to that idea, like for Ori, Wes, Micah, what are some of the things that drew you to campus?
I think my answer is has a lot of overlap with what Aja shared. I think I'd come from a pretty traditional finance background, and with entrepreneurship as a long-term vision for me, knew that it was important for me to place myself in an environment that was going to really push me to take risk, but risks in thoughtful ways around entrepreneurship and innovation. And I think I'm still on that journey, and that's really a focus for this year in terms of some of that exploration. But I think just being in this ecosystem, like there's so much that you gain almost through osmosis, just being around the conversations that are taking place here and in the surrounding community. I think, having a chance to hear about the great work that Aj is doing, hear from others in our class, it keeps the itch there to continue to push towards creating versus just following. And I think I appreciate constantly being challenged on that front, and yeah, I think it's really just the community that we have around innovation and entrepreneurship that it inspires me.
Cool. So anything to add, Ori or Micah, kind of things about the GSB that spoke to you?
I think I just got really good, had really good interactions in revisiting the school after being admitted, and especially from kind of the BBSA and just other students. Like, I remember meeting Ori on revisit day and was just like, I'm going to be friends with this girl. She is awesome. Like, so smart, like so kind, so welcoming. And that was felt like the general atmosphere of the school, which definitely kind of played in. I don't know if you can really differentiate, like a lot of these schools offer great opportunities. And so kind of from that point, it's like maybe where you feel most comfortable.
Yeah. So true. There's a really interesting kind of trajectory of 3 questions here. So a triumvirate of Folu, Shelby, and Sophia. Let's see. Sophia's question will be next. So Dakota, Folu, and Shelby about how have your career aspirations kind of evolved over time? Have they? And then what have been some of the resources that helped you explore that and or launch them? So interest, and then how did you kind of tap into that at the GSB? Was the Career Management Center part of it? Was it alumni? How did you experience things? So I'll give you a moment to process that meaty question.
I'll jump in. I'm still very much on that journey of kind of piecing it together. But one experience that I had last year that helped me narrow my focus a bit was participating in the GSB Impact Fund. So I knew that fintech, financial inclusion, it was a space I wanted to explore, but I wasn't sure which vehicle I wanted to leverage to drive the impact that I was passionate about, whether that would be, advising, investing, or being an operator. And I think Impact Fund, and just this background, and the Impact Fund is an early stage impact focused VC that's entirely student run here at the GSB. And as part of that, the team's organized into various industry verticals, and I had a chance to be on the fintech investment team. And you're given a ton of autonomy in terms of sourcing deals, learning about the space, and really is a chance to test all 3, where you have to go through the entire investment due diligence process, put together an investment memo, do the financial modeling, but at the same time you're building relationships with really awesome founders in a field in which that, for me, it was a great way to get to know the industry much better. And I think my takeaway from that was, okay, like it's really fascinating, the investment side. But for me, I think the passion would be like, I'm more excited about being on the other side of that conversation and being an operator. And I think that's guided some of the steps I've taken on the back end of that. But that's just one plug for kind of an opportunity to drive some real-time impact while you're here, but also do add some structure to that exploration that I know a lot of us are looking to do that first year.
I echo Wes that I'm still on the journey as well, just because I came to the GSB with so many interests and I felt like I only had one summer. So what can I do and how can I figure out what I want to do for my life? And a couple things helped me sort that out. One was actually a conversation I had with Dean Moss early in the year where she was like, you don't have to choose really. You can just explore the things you want to explore. And that really helped me lay out that some of my interests, like in media, I would explore via an internship, but some of my interests in helping my family's business, I can explore a lot through classes and with my professors. And so I took the family business class, I worked on the family business projects and taking like the classes with professors that started and launched their family businesses too. So just knowing that there is more than just one way to explore my career has been really helpful for me. And I leverage the CMC a lot. I felt like there a lot of those folks are my mini therapists a little bit and doing like life mapping to figure out what I want to do. So it's okay if you don't know exactly what's next. And there are a lot of resources to figure out what that could be.
Yeah, the CMC, the Career Management Center, it's pretty awesome. Just some great people there. And so I'd like to shift focus back to BBSA, if that's okay, which is really the focus of today's session. And so question here from Sophia was, how do you balance being part of a growing Black community at the GSB with involvement in other communities without feeling like siloed or pigeonholed? And how do the communities interact with BBSA? So that interaction among groups as well.
I can speak to that. I would say like one thing that you'll find about all Stanford students, and maybe this is MBA students in general, is that we're over involved and over indexed. And so for better or worse, I can't really think of anyone in our community who's specifically siloed or pigeonholed in that like people have to and do play a lot of different roles and hats are involved kind of across the GSB social universe. I would say personally, BBSA has functioned as kind of like a home-based landing page and has been kind of just a really amazing support network and a place that I found some really deep relationship and just general community. But in no means is it my only kind of social community, and like have roommates who I've met through other kind of interest areas and have kind of groups of friends that I've went on like international trips with and like, you know, made friends that way. So I think I have been in other environments where kind of a school community feels more segregated or siloed or pigeonholed in that way. And it doesn't feel like that here. And like, I even like, I'd like to hang out more with like all of the Black community, but they're very busy. So it's sometimes hard there as well.
Yeah, I think, Micah, you touched on a number of the points that I had. I think I would add on that to say the interaction between groups, which I think is like the second part of that question. I think for one, every group is a little bit different because every group has different members. So every group sort of interacts with each other and they have their own sort of system of what events they have, et cetera. But we all work nicely with each other. There is a lot of overlap and interaction because the GSB is an intersectional place. So a lot of people within the GSB fall into multiple categories. You might be Jewish, you might be mixed, you might be, you might speak a different language, whatever, be from a different place. So like there's a lot of intersectionality amongst us. And because of that, there's a lot of overlap with what we do with other groups. And so we spend a lot of time talking to other groups, connecting with other groups, ensuring that we don't like plan over each other's events, et cetera, because we all want to be a part of what's happening. And so I think that's the beauty of that, is the ability sort of to connect and to feel like, you're a part of the BBSA, but in a lot of ways you're a part of the school, and the BBSA is like a subsection of that. greater experience that you're having.
Cool. All right, and here's a question from Anna. What were some of the most challenging hurdles you had to overcome as you joined the GSB, whether it is individually or as kind of a minority student? And how has BBSA, like how have you leaned on BBSA and through that process?
Yeah, I can start off. I think for me, I was coming from the East Coast. I was in Washington, D.C. before I came to Stanford. I had never lived in California. I had lived maybe 4 days in the Bay Area before I moved to Stanford. So moving to the Bay Area in general, I think was difficult for me because there was a complete change in the demographics of the area um, and the school. So it definitely was an adjustment for me in the first couple of months, being in an area where the Black population was so small. And it honestly operated differently than it does on the East Coast because of the size of the population. So I think for me, because of that, I leaned heavily on the BBSA, and I found a lot of community on campus within the GSB, within the BBSA, and then within my classmates who, were very focused on building relationships and creating community in the school. I think it's sort of like the blessing and the curse of being at Stanford on the farm, right? You're in this bubble, and there's not a lot going on around you, but because of that, you spend a lot of time with your classmates, so you actually, I think, get closer than you might if you had, say, a city to sort of expand out into. So I would say that was probably the hardest adjustment. And then just getting back into the mode of school on top of that. So trying to figure out the social scene, figuring out where I fit in, on top of like trying to get back into academics, it was a little overwhelming. So I found that being able to rely on, the BBSA and the people around me in that adjustment period was really helpful.
Same for me. I rely on the my BBSA community for everything. It feels like helping me with career, helping me with like relationship issues, all the things. And I remember we have sections your first fall, and I remember it was just hard adjusting to school, adjusting to a new social environment. And Wes and another one of our classmates, Xavier, were in my section. And I remember just like looking over to them, making eye contact when things were a little stressful, and them looking back at me. And it made me feel heard and supported, and I knew I wasn't alone. And I think it can be really hard transitioning into school again, and knowing that I had the BBSA community, even that we hadn't known each other very long, that this was a safe home space, was just priceless for me.
So there's a question here from Brandon about how has the BBSA changed from when you first joined to today, knowing that the spirit at Stanford is student-led, staff-supported. How has the group evolved over your time here?
It's bigger now, isn't it? It's like kind of surprising. That was all this group. So I guess it's bigger now, which is great. It's growing.
Yeah. I mean, what I'd add is, and I don't think this is unique to Stanford. I think in all the communities or institutions that we're all at, that just the Black community has a bit of a spotlight on it, or has this past year. So I think there's been, greater appetite to both support and learn from this community. So I think, as you can imagine, that's, there's a lot of time and energy that goes into that. And then we already, I think what we spoke to earlier, I think we shifted, we were a bit more proactive this year and continue to be in terms of working with leaders of the institution, with alums, with others to make changes that will make this a better place for you all. And we're really encouraged about the momentum that's been built, and look forward to you all being a part of that and carrying that forward.
So there's a question here, and I think it's kind of related to this topic as well. And the question is about like mental health and holistic support kind of broadly, knowing that given the challenges of business school amid broader social kind of dynamics, how have you been able to find those moments of mental health? Does BBSA engage and support kind of within that realm? What are some resources that you might have tapped into to make sure you're able to keep putting that one foot in front of the other?
I can say I had it kind of as a more non-traditional student and someone who was transitioning from just like what was a much more progressive, probably anti-capitalist workplace environment and lifestyle into a traditional business school based like a lot of just like adjustment period. And I definitely utilized the like psychological support services. It's called CAPS, and I can't break down the acronym.
Counseling and psychological services.
Perfect. Very
You had it right the
love
first
it.
time.
Yes. And specifically like work to connect with a practitioner who works with like Black and Brown and Indigenous folks as their like practice area, and have recommended them to several friends similarly. So that's definitely a resource that have been able to see them as part of my student health fee at Stanford.
Plus one, Micah helped me get set up with CAPS, which was really helpful. I think the BBSA also does some more informal stuff to help create spaces for reflection and deeper conversation. We have wind downs, Wednesday wind downs. I don't really drink much, so you don't have to drink, but it's just like a place to come together and talk about post all the terrible stuff from the spring and that carried into the summer. We had one last week to just digest from stress during the election. So I think we try to create those spaces so that that are open, low, very chill, to come and just talk with people in the community and feel like you have a space to be heard or just listen.
And I would say a lot of it is probably more informal and like exactly as Ori said, and based in relationship of just like, if someone says something and I'm like, they lack a critical lens on race, power, and gender, and they need to educate themselves, I definitely have a great listening ear within this group and within these relationships.
How would you say, like, are conversations like that common also like outside of the BBSA environment, kind of more broadly in terms of like health and wellness, mental health in particular?
Yeah, I would say it's definitely, I think like all students who are on kind of a track and have either been working heavily in like the many hour jobs prior to GSB or after GSB, it's definitely kind of under discussion. And we have classmates who are particularly interested in it or kind of consistently talking about it as just an area of expertise and focus. So I do think, and especially during COVID, it has been on folks' minds of just how do we stay safe and stay sane.
Yeah, so true. So this might be circling back to way in the beginning of this conversation. But Wes, you mentioned earlier when we're giving the overview of some of the activities BBSA does, about like the connection to the greater community. And so this question comes from Chisholm. Can you share some ways that BBSA engages with the greater Bay Area? Kind of any ways that takes shape?
Yeah, so one thing I'll jump back to, and Aja mentioned this, is I think our conference is a big way we do that in terms of inviting others in from a content perspective. But I think kind of the essence of your question is more focused around community service and engagement. And to be frank, I think last year that was something a lot of us felt was missing from the BBSA experience, and is something that's a priority for us this year. So one of the things we're kind of in the early stages of planning is kind of a leveraging Black History Month as a powerful window to join forces with our alums to support the Bay Area and in particular communities of color. And I think we're early in figuring out what that looks like, but have recognized that that's a responsibility that we carry as Black students with this privilege of being here. It's an opportunity to share this experience with others who may not be as fortunate. So it's a priority for us, and look forward to that coming together probably early next year.
Nice. Any other experiences with the group here, and how, like, whether you have or how you hope to kind of engage the community?
I don't do this necessarily through BBSA, but more through kind of like community efforts of like mutual aid and other community advocacy and organizing, but mostly DC based. And I'm still involved in that. And I think a lot of our members do that in different ways. It's just maybe not through the BBSA centrally, of just like Ori and Wes had mentioned, tutoring undergrads, kind of Black undergrad students, as in a mentorship relationship. And I think there's just other ways that people engage, mostly on an individual level.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, and then we're gonna zoom back again. I'm doing all kinds of hopping around here, but coming back to maybe the audience and some of the things that are on their minds. So we're gonna end, so preview to the last question, words of wisdom for attendees. But as you were approaching the application process, are there things that you really either appreciated or wish you had done slightly differently as you were thinking about business school and GSB in particular?
I think one of the things that I appreciated during the application process was really, I think I had connected with a couple of people, they sort of like late in the process, like I would say, like, I think applications were submitted in December or something like that. So for round 2, and I connected with someone like really late, maybe a couple of weeks before the app. And I found like I was, from that point on, and then through the application process, through the admission process, and then prior to accepting my admittance here, I think I was appreciative of the honesty and the transparency and the thoughtfulness of the people that I spoke to. And I think that I found to be not just a case of like the admissions process, but of GSB people in general. I think I'm constantly surprised by how thoughtful and how interesting, and just how I think there's just so much fodder for conversation and for rich conversation amongst the GSB that I appreciated in that process. And now something I wish I would have done differently, I wish I would have given myself more time to do more reflection during the process. I think I probably could have, and obviously my career aspirations are basically the same, but have evolved. But I feel like there was a lot of room to do some deeper reflection during the application process that I wish I'd taken more time to do. But
any other tips from the group about when you were applying, like things to think about?
I don't feel like I have good tips because I was a deferred admit, so I applied like a long time ago. But something I wish in retrospect, I spent a lot of time just trying to answer the question, like why Stanford, rather than kind of what Aj was talking about, of reflecting of like actually why I want to do this for me, not what I think the right answer will be. And I think that just takes time, that takes talking to people, that takes doing the research about what this place has to offer. And if you feel like it like fits with who you want to be. And I think when I switched that mindset, it made answering the question for me much easier because it was very authentic in what I thought I wanted. And even though that's changed, it came from a place of truth. And so when I got here, the foundations of those answers still rang true.
All right, we're gonna round out with the final question of the afternoon. So if you could give yourself one piece of advice as you were starting business school or through the application process, thinking about your year and a half or so here, what would you tell yourself? I'll do a round here and then we can close out the afternoon.
I think if I could go back and maybe this is the message I'm giving to you all, prospective applicants, is you belong at the GSB. And I was very close to not applying because I went through tons of cycles of doubt around my ability to get in and ability to thrive here. And what kind of my parting word to you all would be, you've done the work. More than 90% of your app is done, and the work you're doing now is just piecing that into a story that reflects who you are at the core. And so I'd encourage you to tell yourself now you do belong, and don't hesitate to apply. This is a place that you would thrive.
I think I just have to echo Wes. I'm going to come to Wes for advice next time. That was wonderful.
I think something I'd add is that there's no like one right way to do business school or do the GSB. I spent a lot of time in the fall and the winter last year being like, I'm doing this thing wrong. I'm doing classes wrong. I'm doing job search wrong. I'm doing friends wrong. But there's no one way, and whatever way you do it is the right way for you.
Yeah, I think I would say to myself, I think Wes, you put it well, but the fact that every opportunity that I choose to engage in, I'm fully capable of taking advantage of, and I deserve every opportunity that comes my way. And I think that was hard for me to acknowledge and accept early in the application process and during my first year at Stanford, but it's really about acknowledging that you are capable of maximizing, and you should maximize every opportunity and every potential chance to level up or do something different or challenge yourself that comes your way, and that you can succeed by doing that.
Yeah. Thank you all for those really important words that I think we all need to hear, regardless of where we are in our careers or educations. Sometimes just to know that we have done the work, and it's okay to celebrate and get excited about what comes next. And yes, you can do it. I think that's just incredibly powerful. So I want to make sure to give y'all a little bit of time today, because I know it has been a long day of Zoom, of classes, of projects, and all of the other things that business school asks of you. So thank you so much for sharing your time with us today, both to our panelists as well as to our attendees. I hope to see you throughout the week, and have a wonderful rest of your evening.